Welcome to the 13th and final episode of 13 Ways to Lead with your host, the 13th Command Chief Master Sergeant of the Air National Guard, Chief Master Sergeant Maurice Williams. Our featured guest today is the Air National Guard Command First Sergeant, Chief Master Sergeant Aaron Dent. I'm Master Sergeant Eric Gallion, and today's episode is about leading by being fearless. The virtue of courage is not the absence of fear, but doing what's right despite the presence of it. Uphold our Air Force core values and virtue of courage by always exhibiting a no-fear attitude. It's okay to be concerned, but fear of failure must be a non-negotiated principle of your leadership that's instilled and embraced by your team. Fearless leaders don't wait for others to rescue them, they take action. Chief, the floor is yours.
Hey, today is just no fear in the room today. That's the way we're going to start off and have some good conversation, enjoy ourselves. Like I said, the guest today is Command First Sergeant for the Air National Guard. Hey, I'm going to kick it over to you and let you tell a little bit about yourself, tell a little bit about your background so our listeners can get an understanding of who you are and where you come from.
All right. Thanks for that, Chief. First of all, good morning, and thank you for inviting me to be on this podcast. As a member of Team 13, it's truly an honor. And for it to be the 13th episode, that's even better. So once again, I am the Command First Sergeant for the Air National Guard, which is an awesome job in itself. Originally from Cleveland Heights, Ohio, joined Reg Av, come straight out of high school, enlisted as a C2 battle manager, command and control battle manager. Been in various assignments, both overseas and stateside. It's been an awesome career thus far. But I would say my leadership capstone is really my time in a joint organization. We did counter-narco-terrorism work for Central and South America. And there I got to grow both personally and professionally. Personal standpoint, I met my wife while I was serving in that organization. And we've been married for 13 plus years now. Have a 6-year-old son, Hunter. He's also a leadership challenge for me, I would say.
Right.
But it's been pretty good. Cut my teeth there as a additional duty first sergeant. That's kind of what took me on the path of being a first sergeant. And also switched over to the Air National Guard late in my career while I was at that organization, and then career kind of just took off from there. I find myself here with you.
Okay, all right, well, good there. You know, you mentioned about operating in joint operations. And, you know, within different services, we have different cultures. And I think some cultures of our military, we view them a little harder than others based on their mission set and what they do. And we need those different cultures for us to be successful within DOD and as a nation. Can you elaborate on the different styles of leadership you've seen within those different services?
Oh, definitely. I think that was one thing why I say that's kind of my leadership capstone, right? So you work with every different branch of service within DOD to include the Coast Guard. And every one of them has their different cultures, their different personalities. Along with that, you have different OGAs, other government organizations that you work with also. And they all have their different styles, cultures, and personalities. Me being a young Air Force guy coming in at the time, I really had to adapt to the different cultures and understand that it's not about the Air Force way, it's the best idea that goes forward. So it doesn't matter what branch of service or what person it comes for, and that includes rank. It's about the best idea going forward for the mission and for the individuals that are going out conducting that particular mission. So you got to be open-minded.
You know, as we look at fearless, people think about courage and being bold in environments, and some people take the fear as being overbearing. But, you know, I was reading some leadership principles that the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the highest enlisted person in DOD, CZ Lopez, and he called it carnivore leadership professional development. He called silver bullets for effective leadership. And they asked a question in here. He explains about what is a carnivore. And he said, he got this idea for this title because it originated when he was a young pararescuer, a young PJ, attached to a SEAL unit, and they categorized people either carnivores or herbivores. And he said, to be referred to as a carnivore meat eater It meant that the person was dependable, loyal, dedicated, skillful teammate, unquestionable mission focus, and they were the go-to people that acted decisively in absence of orders. Then he talks about the herbivore. He said they were referred to as the grass eaters, meant that people were unmotivated, unreliable, always dependent on someone else to take the task. They were the oxygen thieves. And problems of the organization, disobedient and carrying A3 bags full of excuses. And I just want to refer that being that, that he was operating in a joint environment, but I look at, hey, when you lead fearless, you wanted to execute.
Correct.
You want to be that meat eater.
Correct.
No excuses, nothing to be had. That builds that team, that builds that morale. You got to be executing on it to move forward. Throughout your career, do you know someone that you look at as a meat eater, I would say, in your interaction as a leader?
A lot of them, Chief, I would say. I've been blessed to have a lot of great supervisors, first-line supervisors, and just leaders I've gotten a chance to work with over my career. And that's been consistent to this day.
Right.
And they've given me a multitude of examples of what it is to be a fearless leader, a carnivore per se, when it comes to dealing with tough challenges, personally and professionally.
Right.
I've seen some of my great leaders stumble and get back up and get after it. And I've seen some of my great leaders also make some tough calls, right, that others may kind of shirk at and stumble within the moment. So I've had a lot of great leaders. I think the biggest examples I see with that fearless leadership is the ability to correct airmen that are going down a bad path and stick with them, right? So it's easy to give up on somebody.
Right.
It's easy to say that, hey, you bumped your head once, twice, 3 times, I'm done with it, and not put in the effort to turn somebody around, right? But when I've seen, to me, some of the great leaders I've seen, that 5th time that airman's bumped their head, they're still willing to turn them around. They know that airman has something in them that's worth saving. Right, that's worth getting after, and they put that time and intention into that person. It's easy when you have a top flight of individuals, right, to lead in that environment. But when you got airmen that are struggling, whether it's personally or professionally, and you got leaders that are willing to stand in and help them out, direct them when they need to, be a little bit more candid when they need to, and be a little bit more personable when they need to. Those are leaders to me that are fearless, because that's not easy to do. It takes a lot of time and effort.
As you said, about someone, going through bumping their head a couple of times to get to that 5th time, it reminds me of a quote from Les Brown. He said, as long as you can look up, you can get up. So you got to constantly keep striving forward. And that's some of the things I talk about, too, when I'm out there talking to airmen, and I talk about empowerment. I say, make that decision, pivot, make another decision. I always use the term calculated, because we want to take calculated risks, that we put something in there to think about it before we do it. But sometimes it just don't work that way, but we still got to keep driving.
And I like the calculated piece. When I think about fearless leaders sometimes, the fear is not necessarily maybe the task at hand,
right,
but something about you that you fear within yourself that maybe, hey, I'm not dedicated enough to get this done, or I'm not smart enough, or I may not have enough talent, whatever the case may be. The calculation piece is thinking about, hey, what's making me fearful about the situation, and tackling that, right? Because you're going to have other situations that are common to whatever you're dealing with in life, that you can use that experience of, hey, I'm afraid of public speaking. Am I really afraid of public speaking, or is it that the information I'm talking about, I'm not sure about, so that when I get up in front of people, I'm not sure of myself.
Right.
Right. So, all right, well, what's the information? Well, I'm going to study more, right? I'm going to take time to know the information like I know myself. And in turn, I think you become a better public speaker in this analogy, right? So you got to think about what you're fearful of within the situation. Get after that, and then get back out there. And give yourself grace as you're going through it. Like, you're not going to get it right the first time. That's okay. None of us are perfect. As long as, like you said, you're calculated about it and you step forward and you get after it.
Yeah, I was going to refer back to CZ's silver bullets, and one of them he has is, and this kind of threw me off a little bit, because I say this, you got to manage your time. He has one, he says, time management is a waste of time. Concentrate on action instead. He said, effectively managing 5 minutes does not give you 10 minutes. What you do in these 5 minutes is what truly matters. So executing on that thing,
right.
And that goes back to, hey, taking some calculated risks and moving out on it within that time period, what you have to, make some results on the back end. Yeah. Constant driving. So, I heard you talk about a little bit about you have a son and your interaction with your son. Are you helping him to be a fearless leader? Because, we got someone with the young kids too, you got the same struggles.
I would say for my son we talk a lot. Well, he talks a lot, right? And I listen. He asks a lot of questions. And one thing is just giving him examples. Right, put him in situations where he has to try harder than normal, I would say. I love running, so I take him out running sometimes, or we go hiking. Right. So, and sometimes when we used to live in California, we would hike up these hills, and they're pretty steep hills. And he would get halfway up the hill, he'd get tired, but he wouldn't give up, and he would go through it. And him at the ripe age of 6. When he's challenged in school when it comes to math and or reading, he looks back at those times and he tells me, he's like, hey Papa, I remember when I had to walk up the hill and I didn't think I can do it, and I did it. It gave him a bit of courage, right? And then it gave him a mindset of I can do. I think with any kid, put them in situations where where it tests them and it grows them from a positive perspective, right? I think that's the best thing you can do as a parent. And another thing is just talk to them about some of these things that we experience. I think whether you were a 6-year-old or a 70-year-old and everybody in between, the conversations we have when it comes to leadership and personal and professional development are valued. And I think sometimes we stray away from them, right? We don't know how the person's going to perceive it. We don't know if we're saying the right thing or saying it at the right time. We question ourselves out of having those conversations, but don't be fearful of them. Take the opportunity to talk to the people that you want to re-vector, you want to help out, whether you know them or you don't, and go forth and do it. Don't be scared to do that, right? So I think that goes a long way, and it's going a long way with my son, and the same thing with my wife. We talk about, hard subjects all the time. I think sometimes we as just human, it's nature, we stray away from them, but we try to tackle those things and have it.
So utilizing those communication skills you talk about, talking with your son, talking with your wife. Now, did you develop that? Is that something you did with your parents growing up, or is something that you learned to do later on based on your life experience?
I think a combination of both, Chief. From childhood perspective, great parents. I'm a daddy's boy at heart, grew up with my father, and we had a lot of just great conversations. So he helped me to talk through things and just kind of be patient and talk through emotions, right? And as men, sometimes we forget that. As people, we forget that, I would say, on a broader perspective. So he helped me kind of talk through that. And just being a first sergeant, getting an opportunity to work through people at their highs and lows in life, talking with them, and truly listening, understanding what their concerns are, and then trying to help them out. Help me build my communication skills and help me not be fearful of tough conversations. So I think from a first sergeant perspective, that helped me be better from an operations perspective and have those tough conversations with leaders at times that maybe we didn't see eye to eye. So how do I influence those conversations? How do I continue to work on it to build and understand that one conversation is just not going to get it done sometimes? It's just like any other relationship. We got to build on conversations, build trust amongst each other, and work through the situation. So, but the first step in that is starting.
Now, based on your background, working in a joint environment and as a battlefield airman and being a first sergeant, how do you transform from that operational leader that got to think like that carnivore?
I think you continue to say the same things, you just say them in different ways. Right, so you still have the same leadership philosophies, you still have the same passion behind what you do, but you communicate it differently. Right, I always used to say as a first sergeant, I'm going to go talk to my intel and operators and maintainers and security forces and logistics folks and HR folks. Everybody's going to have the same words, but said differently. Right, because they're different cultures, they're different environments, and we got to respect that. So I try to meet people where they're at and not change me. Like, I'm going to continue to be me, but I'm going to deliver a message to cater it to my audience, right? So I think two things on that is be consistent, number one, and even bigger than that, be yourself, right? Like you got to come into leadership conversations and situations being you. You can't be somebody else. I'm not going to handle things the way Chief Williams is going to handle them. Chief Williams is not going to handle things the way Chief Dent handles things, right? We are our own selves, but we both have the best intentions in our hearts for our airmen and the people we're talking to, right? So be consistent, but be yourself.
That's where it goes to sometime where, of course, you hear me say it within the team all the time. Hey, let's stay in our strength zones over here. Hey, we could be riding the car and somebody starts singing. I say, hey, get out of there. That's not your strength zone.
Right. And I like that point when you talk about staying in your strength zones, because I think sometimes when we get outside of our strength zones, or I would say our comfort zones, that's where that fear creeps up. So to all our folks, I would implore you to look at some of the things that you makes you a little bit nervous or outside your comfort zone, and then work on those things when you don't have to work on those things, right? So when you need them, they're there, right? But don't wait to the moment that you're in something that you want to pull from a weaker part of you because you just haven't worked on it. Know that you got what it takes to do what you need to do. You just got to work on it sometimes. So help you gain more strength zones, I guess.
That's right. We all need them. So people ask me a lot of times, say, how was your day? I say, hey, it was a great day. I say some days are just a little more challenging than others. Right. I never say it's a bad day. Right. Because I don't want to speak that into existence. Just a little more challenging than others. So.
No, I like that. And it makes you think about, to get that confidence and being able to attack situations is remember where you came from. Know all the things you've overcome thus far. I don't care if you're an 18-year-old just coming to the service or you got a couple years under your belt like yourself, right? You've attacked challenges over your times, whether it be in school, whether it be in this Air Force, and from some of our DSGs out there too, right, in their civilian perspectives. Think about those things, levy on those things when you run into challenges, and it should give you the confidence you need to get past whatever you're dealing with.
Yeah, one of the things, I express to senior NCOs and always, and just anybody, that, hey, as long as you got that confidence, you strive yourself, because when you're in an environment, your team, they feed off you as a leader. I listened to Colin Powell's one of his speeches. He was talking about, as a leader, he said, if you're out there and you're cold, hey, you don't show that you're cold, because everyone will feed off of that and go into that same thing. But you show them that strength that they can feed off of to complete the mission or keep that camaraderie there among the teams based on you acting as you are the leader. That's that fearless leader making those calculated decisions where they may feel a little more uncomfortable, but they still executing on it, and everybody else feeds off of it, and that continues to move everyone down the field.
I've seen that a few times. I've seen that at work and in training, where a toxic leader can make or break the entire team just on their actions alone. Right. And it's amazing how one simple change can just change the entire dynamic of a workplace. But if anything, it helps you reflect on that and learn, I don't want to exhibit those same behaviors. I want to learn and grow from that.
Right. I think bad leaders at times, or toxic leaders, right, create different environments, and people are fearful to speak up and also fearful to maybe create change in that environment. But to your point, the bigger thing is that a lot of folks take from those situations, that's not what I'm going to be and what I'm going to do as a leader as I go forward, which is, it's a good takeaway, right? Like every situation is not going to be presented to us in a positive light, but we got to learn from some of the negative things that we go through too, and negative environments that we've come from, to say that, hey, when I get in a position and I can make change, I'm going to do that. I'm going to create an environment that folks can come up and talk to me as their leader and not be fearful of reprisal or anything like that, right? If we're a team like Team 13, we're pretty candid with each other. Right. I mean, it's no save rounds. It's no meetings after the meeting.
Right.
It all comes out. I don't come out of any meetings wondering what my team thought of something. That's for sure. But it's good, and it's all done out of respect, admiration, and love for one another as teammates. to get the job done. So that creates a fearless environment, and it creates fearless leaders.
Mm-hmm.
What would you suggest for the young airman who's new to a work section, who wants to be that fearless leader, but has to deal with a toxic supervisor, someone that makes going to work difficult? How can they overcome and continue to strive to be that fearless leader?
Well, I think a couple points on that. Number one, I would analyze if I was that person, what's truly difficult about me coming into work? Is it me interacting with that person? Is it the rule sets that are being put out there, et cetera? And just analyze, is it really that bad from that perspective? I think sometimes we got to put things in perspective. If we just look at one thing and we stare at it, I come into work, and every time I come into work, my boss asks me what I'm doing for the day. But that's the only bad thing that's going on. Then I really got to push that to the side and say, I don't like it. That's something I wouldn't do. But the other 99% of my day is pretty good, right? So really evaluate the situation, put things in perspective in regards to what you've dealt with in the past, what you really don't like, and how can you put yourself in a position to get past it and be positive about it. And know that this is not, the end all be all of their Air Force career. Don't let anybody dictate your environment to that point, right? You can always hopefully eventually PCS, get another job, etc., but don't let it control you to the point that you don't want to do the job anymore. You don't want to show up to work anymore, because that's just giving somebody or an environment too much power over you, I think, as a person in general, because you're always going to run into challenges, whether you're in the military or not, and environments that challenge you. Well, how do you deal with them? And I think the sooner you start really analyzing, hey, what's bothering me about this, and trying to get past it, the better off you'll be as you continue to run into challenging environments and just challenging people as a whole.
Yeah. That reminded me of a quote that I heard a speaker use, and I've used it a couple of times. Is, hey, don't let anyone, when you let someone define you, they confine you.
I like that.
Yeah. So that is a true thing. So we really got to, still look outside of that, and like I say, evaluate what's the worst thing for the day, and let's look at the percentage of it and see, is it really a bad day?
When I talk to folks sometimes, and I'm walking through the halls and I see somebody down, I'm like, what's going on? It's the end of the day. And it's something that happened at the beginning of the day, right? An argument and or disagreement, or just something just didn't go right. Maybe they got into work late because traffic, family, kids, whatever the case may be. But I'm like, you can't let the whole day be ruined, right? Because of one thing. I like putting things in perspective and know that maybe that minute was ruined, 10 minutes, half an hour, but not the whole day. Not the whole day. Get past it and move forward, and understand that was one thing that happened within your day. It doesn't define your whole day. Just like your mistakes don't define you as a person.
Right.
We got to learn to overcome things, get past them, and move forward.
We're also talking about doing what is right and not what's easy. Can you think of a time you had to make that hard decision, to put paperwork in somebody or take the hit and understand that, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm afraid of the consequences, but I've got to make this happen because it's the right thing to do?
I think it was one pivotal point in my career. New Master Sergeant, I got put in charge of a pretty high-vis program within South America. And we had a team that would go down and evaluate this program annually. It's a presidentially certified program. And the evaluation piece was fairly rudiment as it came down to going down there, doing the exercise, evaluating the program, signing off, drafting the paperwork, and it goes on, gets routed up the chain of command up to the president. He signs off and it for the program to be executed for another year. So we get down to where we're at, and we go through the evaluation process, and it just so happened we had a real world event 2 weeks prior, but we couldn't get the video and audio to that particular event, and we saw what happened, and it was some egregious violations. So just think about it from this perspective: high-vis program, high-vis people within leadership, both DOD and other government agencies down there to certify this program. It's supposed to go through, and we find this one thing that's going to probably stop it from being recertified. What do we do? So went to my supervisor at the time, explaining what was going on, and he didn't want to go forward and share what was going on. He just figured that it would be too detrimental to the program, wasn't the right time, and just fearful of the moment, which I understood. I mean, it's a lot riding on this particular thing. So he says that, and I was like, hey boss, that's not the right thing. We got to push this forward. So kind of pushed his hand to do it, walked him over to one of the senior individuals, part of the team, and I explained what was going on. And I could see his frustration out of the corner of my eye, like, why are you explaining this? But we had to get it out there. It was a pretty serious, egregious violation, and it can cost somebody their lives eventually in the wrong way. So we explained what was going on. Long story short, program got put on a pause for about a month until we had some training fixes and then resumed. Big picture in the moment, I know my supervisor was not happy with me. And he wasn't happy with me for a while, but we got through it, we got over it, but it was the right call, right thing to do. And he even said it. And just because somebody expressed frustration with you at times, you can't let that move you off what you're supposed to be doing. Right. Like life's going to go on, whether he was going to be mad at me forever or not. That wasn't my decision point. The decision point was based off, hey, we got a program and what's going to keep people safe and what's going to keep it operating in the future. That's the decision point. Everything else is just fodder. And you can't, and as hard as it is, sometimes you can't give thought to it. You just can't. So I try not to think about things like that or repercussions or what somebody might think of me for doing something right.
Can you think of a time, Chief Williams, making that tough decision despite the fear it brought?
Yes, I was a time I was deployed. We had a unit come in and we had them prepped to go into aircraft. Aircraft got canceled and another aircraft come in, and we had other individuals standing by already prepped also to go on the aircraft, and they was designated for that particular aircraft. And of course, everyone within the work center was saying, "Hey, well, these people are really let's just go ahead and push them on there." I said, but it's not the right thing to do. These other individuals have been working. It's their designated aircraft they're going to go on. This is the one we got to go. It caused the team a little more work because they had to prep and get the baggage pallet and stuff built for that aircraft. But, that was the right thing to do for those individuals. They had been waiting for some days to travel on into theater, into Iraq. And the other crew had just got there. The aircraft broke. That's just a part of it. They wait until they get it fixed. But I could not push them ahead of the other individuals that was out there. You talking about 50 different soldiers that need to be war fighters out there on the line. So we got to think about that and what they're doing, different type unit from the other unit, but we still got to do the right thing, not do the thing that was just the easiest to do. And so that was one of the times. And at that time, hey, I was a tech sergeant at the time, but I was a NCO over there running that passenger terminal. We was a small contingent inside all Army units that we was running. So you got different cultures, different words flying. Yeah. But we held our own, did the right thing, made it happen.
How'd your team treat you afterwards?
At that time, they was all emotional because there was more work they had to do. But once everything got calmed down, we got it processed, the other aircraft got fixed, those folks went out, later on, everything worked itself out. But, sometimes the information, and we got to take emotions out of it, just like Chief Dent said, take calculated risks and make those calls, because I need to get those war fighters there to help do some other things. Not that other group wasn't valuable, but their mission was totally different from those other war fighters.
Yeah, because you can always circle back around on the emotional impact on something, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, you got a problem at hand. We have to get it done. We get it done, but it's not to say that we're not concerned about what somebody felt about the decision. We can talk about it, but the time to talk about it is not as we're actioning something, right? The time to talk about it is once we regroup and give them the why, and give them an opportunity to tell how they felt about that particular subject. But we just can't do it then.
Yeah, we got to be executing, just kind of like that leadership principle that I read from CZ. We got to execute. If we got 5 minutes, we got to execute in that 5 minutes. We're not going to gain 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you find yourself leading with this principle more in your professional life or in your personal life, or is there like a balance between the two?
I'm fearful at home.
Walking on eggshells, huh?
Yeah, my wife would get a kick out of that one. No, but I think you got to do it both, right? It goes back to just being your authentic self. You always do it with dignity and respect, but you can't be afraid to have that conversation. You can't be afraid to tackle hard issues. You can't be afraid, whether it's my 6-year-old son or my wife or all the airmen I'm blessed to lead, to have those tough conversations. And I go back to, you got to give yourself grace. You're never going to say it 100% right. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get in those situations. But I think, when I think about being a fearless leader, that's something that's a part of an individual that's carried over personally and professionally. And don't be afraid to be fearless and have those conversations and do what needs to be done.
I remember examples of leadership in my past where they were fearless in the workplace, but home life was totally different. It may not be a facade, it's just a different environment, but it does make you wonder, well, how can I translate, my workplace attitude to my home life, or vice versa?
Yeah, I think because at work it's structure, right? I mean, we have rank, we have positions. It's a different culture. At home, it could be structured, but it's not as structured as it is, wearing this uniform. And I think at home is the more challenging leadership environment any day.
Yeah.
My son may listen to me and he may not. My wife has a vote in everything we do, right? So I think it makes you a more well-rounded leader because you have to compromise. You have to talk differently. You have to have more understanding with your family members than you do maybe in a workplace. But I think that transitions back over to work and makes you a better leader, more effective leader, better listener. It becomes less about the rank and the position, and you start operating a little bit like you do at home from the perspective of how you communicate, how you listen a little bit more, et cetera. So I think the home environment, to me, it makes you a better leader from that perspective. Just, it's not a lot of rules around that thing, right? You just kind of lean in, talk, and go for it. So.
It takes a lot of patience to raise a child, significantly.
Well, I had a whole head of hair before I started this. I had a whole head of hair. No, but it does. But it's a good problem set, right? And it teaches you a little bit about yourself. I always joke around the ages between 1 through 5 and 75 on up. If you can adopt a perspective of a 5-year-old and a perspective of a 75-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, they're fearless. They're just going to go do. You say no, they say, why not? I can do this.
Right.
That courage, that passion, that drive, you need to have that every day. That 75-year-old has a different perspective. Hey, man, I woke up this morning. I'm happy, right?
Yes.
So that thing that happened this morning, I don't even remember what happened. It doesn't matter. I'm alive. I'm happy. I'm willing to, take on this day. I live for Monday through Monday and not just, Saturday and Sunday, right? So just a different perspective of life. And so if you take those two perspectives with the things you've learned already within your lifespan, it just makes you a better human, a better leader, and you look at fear just totally differently.
Yeah, it's a little something funny. I was out one time, and there was this older gentleman there. He was 90 years old, and we were having a conversation. He told me his age, and then there was a young man with me. He was about 21, 22, and the old guy said, man, yeah, I'm 90 years old. And the young guy said, oh, man. He looked at him and said, man, I don't know if I want to live to 90. He said, well, try 89 first.
Right, before talking that talk.
Right.
No, that's good perspective, too.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Different perspective, but that's what make us great. That's what make us unique to be those leaders that we need to be. As we, if I look back and I saw Airman First Class Williams many years ago talking about leadership, the perspective and the idea I had then couldn't fathom the position I'm in now and how I think, because sometimes we don't know if we're going to grow that much or expand that far. A lot of times I think that, it's just a reality of us growing each day through our different experiences and make us better individuals. Some things are inherent within us, but we got to work on that all the time to continue to build on it.
Yeah, strengthen your values, or at least be able to reflect on them and why they make you the way you are.
That's right. Yeah.
I agree. And taking time to reflect on, who you are and how you got to be where you're at gives you the confidence you need to take on different challenges and issues personally and professionally throughout your life. So, hey, you asked a great question earlier about, advice to a young airman. I mean, you gotta know yourself. You gotta understand who you are and how you got to be where you're at, and let that drive you forward. Like, you've accomplished a lot thus far. Just raising your right hand and coming into the military says a lot about who that person is and their character. Don't dismiss that, right? Lean on it and go forward.
Well, this is the final episode of my 13th principle out of 13 Ways to Lead. I have my teammate here from Team 13. There's no better way to close it out. I want to remind everyone, hey, you can go back and listen to the other 12 episodes and move forward on this. And this has been a great opportunity, great adventure, engaged with a lot of people and communicated and touched a lot of individuals out there in our enterprise. So I'll just leave it with that.
Thank you, Chief Williams and Chief Dent, for taking the time to speak to us about leading by being fearless. Be sure to follow the Air National Guard on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For more of Team 13, follow the Director of the Air National Guard on Facebook. Thank you for tuning in to the 13 Ways to Lead podcast, and stay tuned for more from the National Guard Bureau Public Affairs Office. From all of us here at the Air National Guard Podcast Network, have a great Air National Guard Day. Team 13, out. 13 Ways to Lead is produced by Lieutenant Colonel Amber Schatz. Our editor and sound mixer is Master Sergeant Randy Fowler. This episode was recorded at the Secretary of the Air Force Public Affairs Studios in the Pentagon.